Hello again, my lovelies. It has been some time. Especially with how busy the last couple months have been. I have settled into my new apartment and finally got the time to record again. I am so sorry for letting you wait, and I will not bore you with too much. And let us just quickly go into Ignore the Dementor by NinjaPandaScholar. Chapter 16. Run, meet, Ronnie. Dobby, following Hedwig, caught up to Harry in the astronomy tower. He had eventually calmed down after his panic attack in the common room. Being outside his human body as a Dementor made things a lot clearer to him. Jamie was a mess, was his conclusion. It was easier to blame his more human emotions and instincts on the soulless body than having to own up to them. Though he was very aware that Jamie had no thoughts or feelings, so it was a lie he was willing to tell himself.
"What's you doing, Mr. Harry Potter?"
Dobby asked as Hedwig settled on the parapet beside Harry, who scratched her head with a long, skeletal finger. "Calming down, figuring out what I actually feel," Harry answered with a sigh. "I don't know if I'm angry at Umbridge, disgusted at myself, afraid of getting caught, or worried what my friends will think. I'm just kind of messed up right now, and I think, I'm settling into angry at Umbridge and righteous indignation that I was the one that had to handle the situation, though."
Dobby agrees with the last one.
The elf nodded enthusiastically.
Winky does too. Really? She wishes Winky was the one that handled it.
Harry sank to where he was hovering over the floor cross-legged, so that he could be more on the same level as his friend. "So, what's the plan? Did Winky have any suggestions for how we're going to handle this? I can't believe I'm talking about covering up a murder. One of those things that you'd swear you'd never do be doing." Dobby nodded again, comfortingly took Harry's hand that wasn't petting Hedwig's in his.
"She says that there'll be an investigation. She see old Master Barty Crouch do this many times, but Winky and Dobby's will make sure no one finds the body. And if Mr. Harry Potter keeps to the story that he didn't have detention and she wasn't there, then there isn't anything they can do."
"What about Veritaserum?" Harry asked anxiously. It was what he was concerned about the most. Dobby shook his head.
And Smirkdo, "No, Mr. Harry Potter's is a minor. Winky says you cannot be given any truth serum. It's illegal. She says if yous are given anything, just starts talking about everything you knows about Sirius Black and the Rat and the Dark Lord. Don't let them ask questions, just keep talking until it wears off and they're distracted. Then they have to deal with that." Harry laughed and seemed to lose a couple pounds of anxiety.
"Honestly, I almost wish they would give me something then." Dobby wrinkled his nose but chuckled.
"Let's still avoid it."
Can I actually help you in the kitchen tonight to get ready for breakfast? I need something to do to keep me busy." Harry sighed, knowing the house elves hated when anyone tried to help them. "I promise I won't make a habit of it, and I won't touch the all-sacred stove." Dobby seemed to think about it for a minute.
"I guess we can move Sparky off dishes and let him chop things. I hold no responsibility if breakfast isn't perfect, though."
Harry smiled and almost bounced off the floor. He knew the house elf, known as Sparky, was as much, if not more, of a klutz than Tonks, and was not a fan of having to wash dishes. He was on probation for dropping an entire bowl of pudding on the floor outside of the kitchen. It would be an entertaining evening, at the very least, if he was on chopping duty. "I'll be the best dishwasher ever." Dobby chuckled and pulled Harry along behind him down from the tower.
"Yous just have to be better than Sparky, and we's can't shame him to do better then."
Harry ghosted back into the tower just after dawn, feeling much better after house elf and dish therapy, and was surprised to see that his body was not in the armchair he'd left it in the night before. He wasn't worried though. It was just like Ron and Hermione to take Jamie up to the dorm instead of leaving him there alone. He was just only concerned that he'd left his friends in the condition he had. They must be really worried about him. He hadn't broken down like this ever, though. He had come close after Cedric's death. He stopped at the foot of his four-poster bed and looked at the scene in confusion. Jamie was definitely there, but there was a high elf wearing striped pajamas wrapped around his body with a hint of green skin showing through the glamour. Why was Neville in the bed with Jamie? Harry wondered as he decided to handle the situation. He couldn't exactly drop back into his body with Neville wrapped around it. Plus, the elf would definitely feel the difference. He claimed Harry's Dementor was an anti-elf. However, if he woke Neville up, he'd probably terrify his dorm mate. Being woken up by a Dementor had to be one of the worst ways to wake up. Just under getting woken up by Voldemort himself. The decision was made for him as Neville groaned and slowly blinked his eyes, probably sensing someone staring at him in his sleep. Harry braced for the reaction. Neville rubbed his face and looked up at the Dementor, then frowned. He rubbed his eyes one more time. Finally, it sank in as he jumped and with a yelp almost fell off the bed. However, the elf couldn't move since he was trying to pull the dead weight of Jamie with him. Harry quickly motioned him to be quiet before he could cry out and almost jumped back into Jamie, a rush of pain washing over him from the body. What's going on?" Neville exclaimed when the Dementor disappeared into his friend's body. Luckily, it was muted by the silencing charm Harry kept on the curtains of his bed. Jamie didn't have nightmares, but it had become a habit to set them every year. So he had that year as well. "Shouldn't I be asking that? You're the one who cuddled up with my body." Harry raised an eyebrow and chuckled from where he was laying propped up on the pillows now. Neville took a deep breath and seemed to be trying to wake up his brain process and process the situation. The green showing through his glamour disappeared as the teen woke up more of the day for the day. "Okay, hold on. You're a Dementor. Wow, I don't know if that explains a lot or just brings up more questions. How does one even turn into a Dementor?" "Yep. It's kind of like becoming a vampire, I guess. I got to keep my body to wear around as a disguise, though." Harry smiled cheekily. "I call it Jamie. It's a bit like a pet." "That's the weirdest thing I've heard all year. Neville yawned, not too freaked out or just too sleepy to care. Harry guessed that being in the HSMC would raise your threshold for strangeness, though. That's a new one for the club, he added with a chuckle at the end. So are you ever going to tell me why you were spooning my soulless body last night? The Dementor asked with a fake indignation in his face. I guess this actually all does make more sense now. Neville mused, not even embarrassed. Ron and Hermione woke me up by mistake when they carried your body in last night, and I heard them talking about how they needed to get your body comfortable for when you came back, as it needed to heal. They were then whispering about keeping silent about something and how you needed their support and not questions right now. I think Ron was actually lecturing Hermione, but I might have hallucinated that. It seems more likely than it actually happening. Harry shrugged. He vaguely remembered that something might have happened like that before he left the night before, but he was panicking, so he didn't remember much. Okay, so you jumped into bed with me. Neville rolled his eyes. I came to check on you since all that sounded really strange. I was not surprised because you didn't feel all dark like you normally do. I guess I understand that now. Neville chuckled. Anyway, you did feel like pain and a whole sea of pain. Are you okay? Harry winced. He was not going to tell Neville what happened. Yeah, it's rough. I'll be fine, though. Don't ask. Neville crossed his arms and frowned, not liking the sound of that. You wouldn't wake up, and you were in pain. I was worried, and you said that I could come to you if I ever needed a hug or a cuddle. I thought you might need one. Or at least I would be there if something really bad happened. You know, Nev, I think Jamie really did need that cuddle. Thank you for taking care of me. Harry reached over to pat Neville's shoulder, but stopped himself just in time. Sorry, dark again, I know. Oh, it's fine, really. Neville awkwardly gave Harry a one-armed hug, obviously not very comfortable with it. Harry really appreciated the effort, though. The curtains on Harry's bed were dramatically thrown back as Ron sighed in relief at seeing his friend. There was worry lining the redhead's face, and his emotions were everywhere. Oh, thank Merlin! You're back! Wait, why is Neville in the bed with you? Should you be telling Luna something? Ron raised an eyebrow and smirked, his worry starting to filter away. What you do is your own business, but you know Luna, she might want to join. No, hush you! I'm not really dating Luna anyways. Harry turned pink and mumbled. Neville coughed out a laugh as he stood and stretched. You keep telling yourself that, Harry. The Dementor rolled his eyes and turned back to Ron. You and Hermione woke up Neville and he hopped in bed with me to make sure I was okay. He met Jamie this morning already. Oh. Ron said, understanding dawning in his eyes and causing them to grow as big as saucers. Yeah, not the best way to wake up. Though I guess fear does tend to make you wide awake, the High Elf said wryly as he walked back towards his bed. So, he knows everything, Ron whispered. Harry shook his head. Just about what I am, he whispered back. And that something happened, but not what.
I don't even know what happened, mate.
Though I can guess, I get it. Plausible deniability, you don't have to tell me. Ron added on quickly at the end. Hermione came around after you left. You know her first thought is always tell a teacher, and then it's that we can handle this together, and she was always going to get there. It just took her a minute. Harry nodded. He honestly didn't remember what she had said the night before. It was all kinds of painful and terrified blur. But that did sound very much like Hermione. Good. We've been through too much together to separate now. How are you feeling? Will you be able to act normally today? Ron asked in concern, not sure how they'd cover for him if he wasn't able to. Yes, Harry. Neville walked over and handed his friend a vial of potion. My potions tutor made this for me for headaches. I get migraines sometimes. Maybe it'll help with the pain some. Harry frowned and studied the potion made by Malfoy, like it could be poison. He was certain the blonde wouldn't try to poison Neville, and he didn't know it would be given to Harry, so it must be safe, right? Who's your tutor? Ron asked, confused at Harry's suspicion of the potion. Malfoy. Harry answered for Neville, who rolled his eyes yet again that morning. Harry thought he was learning some bad habits from Draco. Oi, don't take that! Ron made a grasping motion to take the potion away, but Harry quickly scooted back and downed it. I'll chance it. Harry smirked as he handed the empty vial back to Neville. Wow, yeah, I do feel a little better. He grinned as the potion instantly started working. What's going on? Dean asked as he and Seamus walked over to the group in various stages of ready for the day. Harry's cheating on Luna with Neville, Ron said seriously as he walked towards the bathroom. I'm not! Ron, tell them you're joking! Harry called after him as Dean and Seamus both looked at him questioningly. I'm hurt that you're ashamed of me! Neville called out indignantly from where he was digging through his trunk, looking for socks. Brats! Harry huffed as he walked as normally as he could make himself towards the bathroom. I'm eating breakfast with the Ravenclaw table. Dean and Seamus just looked at each other and shrugged. They weren't exactly sure what was going on, and they seemed to decide they really didn't care since they'd be late for breakfast if they did. That first day, everyone noticed Umbridge was missing, but no one really cared for or questioned it. Actually, it looked like Professor McGonagall was planning a party in the staff room. Professor Snape almost happily covered her defense against the dark arts classes, with a 7th year Slytherin covering his lower level potions classes that conflicted. As much as no one liked Snape, everyone liked him much more than Umbridge. Outside of the DA, it was the most defense they had learned all year. Harry dropped by Snape's quarters to check in on Dumbledore that evening, as much as he was certain that no one would sell him out. It was relieving to know for sure that Dumbledore had no clue what had happened to the woman and was making some headway into figuring out the Horcrux situation. He had been busy looking into the Founder's artifacts since the locket and the diadem were both probably in that category. Snape was annoying enough to keep shooting smirking looks over the headmaster's head
at Harry though, which had Harry running out of the quarter as soon as he was able. The next evening was when Drake and Ronnie were due. Harry was at breakfast that morning before the rest of his dorm mates, planning what he wanted to tell the Dementors and ask about their plans. He had distractedly speared a sausage when 2 Gryffindor teens plopped down on either side of him, sitting close enough to be in his personal space. Harry put down the sausage and looked at them questioningly. The one on his left looked to be somewhere around 3rd year and was of an Asian descent. His robes were sloppily put together, as most of the 3rd year boys at breakfast. The Gryffindor on his right looked around Harry's age, or a little older, and had dark skin and dark eyes with impeccable robes. Hi? Harry looked between them confusedly. He didn't think he'd seen these two before. Ever. Something was familiar, though. Very familiar. Wait, what are you guys doing here? Where did you get those robes? And the bodies? Harry gasped, finally recognizing the auras of Drake and Ronnie, even though they'd pulled them in as much as possible. A little slow on the uptake, mate. Ronnie, the younger 3rd year, smirked and put an arm around Harry's shoulder. Yes, we could have sucked your soul out again before you even noticed. Drake smirked at Harry much more effectively now that he had facial features. Well, I wasn't expecting you to until tonight, and looking a lot more dementory. Harry pouted at Drake. Plus, you were the one that originally sucked out my soul. I'm still just a bit sore over that. Cry, baby, Drake accused as he put some eggs on the plate in front of him. I never had human food before. You look and feel terrible, Ronnie informed his friend seriously. The house elf told us to fix you, but we didn't think she was being literal. What happened to your body? Weren't you supposed to be taking care of it? Harry still felt like crap. There was a lot of truth in Snape's comment that he should have been on bed rest. The barely closed gash on his side pained him every time he moved, and his nerves were still very sensitive. Okay, you back up and explain all of this. Harry motioned a hand over both of them, and then I'll explain what happened to me. Ew, this is terrible. Drake wrinkled his nose and pushed the plate away from him. How humans eat this, I have no clue. If you must know, the Caribbean wizards made us the bodies, they're golems, and will only last about a month. They said it would help us blend in more, especially since we said our first stop was Hogwarts. I think that's why they make them so young looking. They about died laughing when we explained the whole situation, Ronnie added with a nod. I get the idea they don't like your ministry much. Then we get here early, and as soon as we cross the gates to the castle, this female house elf pops right in front of us and hands us both these robes. Drake rolled his eyes. She ordered us to fix you. I'm actually doing pretty well right now. Harry laughed. You obviously met Winky. She thinks I'm a bit traumatized. That's true, but I've been doing that a lot better. When I don't think about it. Ronnie tried Drake's eggs before spitting them out onto the plate. Yeah, ew. Yeah, human food is weird. So, what happened to you? Harry shrugged with anxiety on his features. An evil professor was torturing me and I ended up eating her. I didn't mean to, but now I'm trying to cover it up. No one has really started
asking questions yet, but they will any time now. What'd she taste like? Ronnie asked with a smile. Delightful. Candy floss, caramel and treacle. Harry smiled with the memory. I don't get the comparison, but it sounds like she must have been really evil. Ronnie concluded. Good for you then. Yeah, if they taste good, don't question it, Drake added, crossing his arms. If they don't taste good, then just move on and choose a better next time. That's a bit callous. Harry frowned at his friend. We're not humans, Harry. Drake sighed in a long, suffering way. You keep forgetting that. I didn't say to intentionally eat good people, but especially when you get a really evil one, it's not like our hearts are going to hurt for them. Hey! Ronnie opened and closed his mouth a few times. Wow, these human vocal cords really can't say our names. What did you call the two of us, Harry? Ronnie. Harry motioned to him, and Drake. He motioned to the older of the two. Those are idiotic names, Drake grimaced. How in the goddess's name did you come up with them? Harry smiled at him. Your auras are a bit similar to a couple of friends of mine's. If you stay around long enough, I might introduce you. That's what I was going to ask. Drake. Ronnie grinned. Can we stay and go to class with Harry? I want to see what human classes are like. We have a job to do, Ronnie. That name is terrible. Drake rolled his eyes. We need to get going. Any ideas where we can find our targets? He directed the last question to Harry. We have an excellent sense of direction, but that doesn't exactly translate to being good trackers. Ooh, can I eat the Lestrange woman? Please! Ronnie begged his friend. Drake smirked at him. Not if I get to her first. After a glare, Ronnie turned to Harry. She's so crazy that her insanity is almost intoxicating. From what I hear, it's like human alcohol. It would be like a soul that's once in a lifetime meal. Really, if you get to her first, you should go for it. I don't know much about this Bellatrix person. Harry chuckled, but pretty much everyone has said the same thing. I think people like Voldemort more than her. Drake shrugged. Different types of delicious. He's completely evil, but not actually insane. You missed the intoxicating overtones then. Okay, well, I don't know where anyone is, but I can give you names of some Death Eaters who weren't in prison. They could be staying with some of those. Harry decided, pulling a piece of parchment and a quill out of his bag. As for where they live, you may have to do some research on that on your own. They have kids here at school, but I can't just walk up and ask where they live. Actually, yeah, I could ask maybe Malfoy where he lives. Harry mused as he started listing out names on the parchment. This is a welcome help. Drake asked, looking over Harry's shoulder at the list. We may snack on a few of the ones that escaped our justice as well, depending on how their soul tastes. Harry looked up and frowned. Hey, can you two do me a favor? Course, Ronnie smiled happily at the teen. You're doing us a favor, so we're happy to help. It depends on the favor. Drake frowned warningly at Ronnie. He knew you didn't just agree to things before you heard them. Could you maybe leave Sirius Black alone? Harry looked at them with concern for his godfather. You said you could tell he didn't commit the crimes he was in prison for. I'd like to keep my godfather around if at all possible. After looking at each other questioningly, they both shrugged. "Fine with me," Ronnie grinned. "If we must." Drake rolled his eyes. "I wouldn't say he had an innocent soul, but whatever he'd done in his life didn't deserve maximum security for the amount of time he was there. So we can call it time served. Just don't tell, King. Isn't that what you called him? Leader, super planner, a bit strict?" Yeah, that's King." Harry was so relieved that they'd agreed not to go after Sirius. He would have hugged them if he didn't think Drake would kick him in the shins for it. "Man, you inflated his ego so much with that name." The younger golem shook his head wryly. "So I don't get to see some classes?" He pouted. Hey, mate," Ron asked in confusion as he sat across from Harry and the Dementors suddenly. He looked at the two with obvious confusion, but also like he was trying to play off that he actually knew the people talking to Harry, assuming he was actually supposed to know them. Hey Ron, meet Ronnie." Harry grinned as he motioned to the Dementor. "Hey," Ron nodded to the Gryffindor, still looking confused. Ronnie seemed to size him up as he watched the redhead pile food on his plate. I don't see it, Harry," he finally said conclusively. "Drake must have dropped you on your head when he sucked out your soul." Drake snorted. "Oh, please, I do. See, it's right here, right there." He motioned to the outer rim of Ron's aura that only the 3 Dementors could see. "No, I'm a warmer orange." Ronnie frowned, not wanting to see the similarity. What's going on?" the human asked with a fork full of eggs halfway to his mouth. I named Ronnie after you because your auras are so similar." He's protesting the choice. Harry grinned at his friend. "This is Ronnie and Drake, the 2 Dementors I told you were going to be coming to the castle." Ron's fork clattered to his plate as he stared at the 2 new students crowding around his friend. "Bloody hell!" he exclaimed. "Language, Ron!" Hermione berated him as she sat down beside him. "But they're Dementors!" Ron hissed out so that only their little group could hear. "Where did you get the bodies?" "Really?" Hermione asked, more curious than afraid. "Are you like Harry?" "No, they're golems," Drake explained with an appreciative nod to her composure. "They will only last us the month while we're tracking down the escaped convicts." "I don't see how you do this all the time, Harry." Ronnie shifted uncomfortably in his skin. "It's damn awkward and pinches something awful." "You get used to it." Harry shrugged and sipped his pumpkin juice. "Well, I'm going to drop the golem off a cliff as soon as I get rid of it," he protested. "Students!" Professor McGonagall called from the front of the room. "Quiet, please!" Harry steeled himself. It had to be something about Umbridge. Ronnie threw an arm around his friend's shoulder when his anxiety was felt by the other Dementors. "As you all can see, Headmistress Umbridge is still missing this morning. As this is the 2nd day, we haven't been able to find her." McGonagall actually smirked at this. "The Ministry is sending out someone to take over her position here and to look for the woman." McGonagall was obviously having trouble looking believably upset at the missing faculty member. Auror Scrimger will be here by the time tomorrow, if the headmistress isn't found before then. Until then,
Professors Snape and Flitwick will be covering her classes. Now eat up and get to your first class.
We should stay and check this new person out, Ronnie whispered to Drake. The other Dementor just slowly shook his head. No, we can't let the prisoners run around free. We can come back though if needed. Harry has an owl. He can send for us if he needs us. What are you going to do? What are you going to do anyway? Eat the man? Ron snorted until he realized that, yes, that was exactly what they would do. Oh, yeah. Okay. Hermione turned a pale green in shock, while Harry just shook his head. No, guys, I'll be fine. Winky's on it. She'll take care of me. Well, I'm coming back to sit in on some classes as soon as we eat our way through the maximum security prisoners, Ronnie promised with a feral grin. Plus, we still haven't met who Drake was named after. The medium security prisoners can wait a bit. They could have sent me with anyone else, but it had to be Ronnie. Drake sighed, seeming to take some new disgust with the other's name. Hey, it's a great name! And I'll be happy to show you around Hogwarts, Ronnie, when you return. Ron sniffed at Drake, who smiled over his namesake. Brilliant! Ronnie beamed as he tried a piece of bacon and spit it out just as he had the eggs. How do you eat this stuff? No one has noticed 2 new students sitting at the Gryffindor table, Hermione asked, looking up at the head table where everyone seemed much happier without Umbridge and were busy not looking at the students. They're teens, and wearing the right robes. Why would anyone notice? Harry grinned, although I think trying to sit in a class might be a little more difficult. Epic! Ron and Ronnie sat together, thinking about the mischief they could get up to. Just not care of magical creatures. Harry shuddered. Hagrid's back, and as much as I love him, I don't think he'll be as quick to save us from the unicorns as Professor Grubblyplank was. Bloody stupid horses with headgear. Drake snarled, obviously having had a run-in with a unicorn in the past. Yeah, and people say we're scary. Ronnie shuddered. Ron and Hermione seemed to be trying to hold back laughter, but Harry thought that was a very ungenerous of them. They hadn't had a couple unicorns chase them across the castle grounds before, like he had. Right, off to eat Death Eaters. Drake stood all business now. Harry, if someone tries to harm you or kill you, you eat them. Get the house elf to cover it up or call on us. Stay out of trouble as much as possible, and if you can't, King has already set up a room at the prison. Or call us and we'll eat whoever is bothering you, Ronnie added with a vicious grin. Or, before I forget... Harry smiled at them indulgently as he pulled out a couple of tubes of lip balm from his pockets. Parting gifts! Oh, thank the goddess! Drake exclaimed and immediately put lip balm on, even though it was on the golem's lips instead of his own. Have more of this when we come back, Ronnie grinned, waved as they headed out to the entrance hall. Oh, eat Voldy for me if you can get a chance, Harry added on before they were too far away. With pleasure. Drake smiled a toothy grin. That night, Harry held his communication mirror in his hand and thought of his godfather. It only took a minute before an out-of-breath Sirius was on the other end. Prongslet! Hey Siri, what are you doing? Harry asked as the man seemed to be gripping a stitch in his side. Avoiding Moody. Sirius turned wide eyes onto his godson. How was I to know his magical eye could see through wood? That's an invasion of privacy, that is. Oh no, what you do? Harry rolled his eyes and chuckled. Nothing your little innocent Dementor ears need to hear about. Sirius smirked. Frankly, if you have any questions about growing up, or your body, or romance, those should be all directed to Moony. I'm fairly certain he'd agree with me on that as well. Harry shook his head, silently agreeing. He did not want to open that can of flubberworms with his godfather. Okay, so I need to tell you there's a couple of Dementors in the area tracking down the escaped convicts from Azkaban. Sirius paled considerably at that. I convinced them not to go after you, though, Harry added on quickly. Sirius sighed out deeply and sat on the couch in relief. Way to cause a heart attack, Harry! Sorry, he winced. Well, also, do you happen to know anything about an Auror Scrimger? Yeah, he was a supervisor when I was an Auror. What do you need to know? The former convict settled on the couch more and held up the mirror at an unfortunate angle where Harry was looking up his nostrils. Harry grimaced but didn't say anything. Professor Umbridge went missing and he's coming to take over and investigate. Is he, reasonable? Harry finally got out. Sirius thought about it for a minute. He's a bit gruff. A bastard. Well, he's a bit of a gruff bastard in my opinion, and way too strict. But he's sold out to his job and the law. He's not going to turn out to be a Death Eater, if that's what you're asking. And by the way, what happened to your High Inquisitor? Don't know. She just disappeared. Harry mumbled out and looked away. Might I want to ask Neville for some lying lessons there, Prongslet? Sirius raised an eyebrow at him. Nothing happened. Harry said more clearly this time. I'm just not going to miss the evil kid torturing Toad, that's all. Sirius leaned forward, closer to the mirror, and the dark shadows seemed to take place of his usual jovial expression. What do you mean, child torturing? He asked dangerously in a tone that Harry knew meant business. He thought Sirius had known, though. Dumbledore did, and he was going to talk to the Order. Dumbledore said he'd tell the Order and tried to get her kicked out last term, didn't he? Harry asked in hurt confusion. Sirius now looked positively deadly. He said she was a detriment to education, but he didn't say anything about torturing kids. What did she do, Harry? He shrugged. She had this blood quill. Sirius was already growling at this point, so he didn't even bother to go on. What else? What else did she do to you? The dog animagus looked more wolf than Remus at the moment as his blue eyes flashed like ice in the mirror. Really, I'm fine now, Harry assured him vehemently. His nerves are shot, and something's wrong with his side. Neville pulled the curtains of Harry's bed aside and informed the mirror. Hey, Mr. Black, weren't you trying to kill Harry? I had up a silencing charm, Harry exclaimed indignantly. Neville raised an eyebrow at his friend. I'm a high elf. That means nothing to me. That's why they gave me big ears, he said, completely blowing Harry's mind. He wondered what else his dorm mate had heard over the years. Oh, don't spread that around if you don't mind, but I assume you're not actually a murderous bastard if Harry's talking to you. Neville said into the mirror. And who might you be, my new elf friend? Sirius asked with wide eyes. Neville Longbottom, sir, he said, pushing Harry over slightly to sit down beside him on the bed. Now, what do you mean my godson's nerves are shot? Sirius asked. Just hand him the mirror, Harry. You had your chance. Neville took the mirror as Harry vehemently protested. My guess is Cruciatus, sir. Neville explained while Harry glared at him. Longbottom, eh? Yes, sir, I know the signs well. The elf confirmed, and Harry's eyes widened in horror. Neville never spoke of what happened to his parents, and Harry could guess now what had happened to them. Hey, kid, how much does your friend Neville know? Sirius' face in the mirror tried to look over to Harry besides Neville. Harry crossed his arms and narrowed his eyes at his friends. I'd say he knows as much as you, Padfoot, but I'm wondering what his big ears might actually have heard. Well, I didn't know the escaped mass murderer was actually your godfather, Neville informed Harry with a very Draco-like smirk. Just confirming, but he is innocent, right? Yes, Nev, he is, Harry said with a tired sigh, framed by Peter Pettigrew. Neville nodded. Okay, so Umbridge was hurting Harry, and now she's disappeared. Hey, you haven't been complaining about being hungry recently either. Neville stared at his friend contemplatively. Nope, don't say another word, Sirius exclaimed frantically, the mirror bouncing as he jumped up and started running up the stairs. Harry, you be quiet and don't talk to anyone. I'm on my way. What? Harry exclaimed and snatched the mirror back from Neville. An Auror is coming to investigate Umbridge's disappearance, and you're still a fugitive. You can't come. Stay home. Sorry, pup. Get the chew toys ready because you're about to get a pet dog. Tell Snape to clean out under his desk since I'm moving in. Sirius said as he obviously was rushing into his room, now probably to pack some things. No, Siri! Snape hates you, and besides Dumbledore. Cool it, Harry. Sirius stopped in his mad dash and stared at the mirror. You can either meet me tomorrow at 8 p.m. outside the Whomping Willow, or I can get myself in. Your choice, but I am coming. The mirror immediately went dark as Sirius cut off the call. Harry picked up a pillow and threw it at the bedpost in frustration. I'm sorry, Harry. I didn't mean to get him so worked up. Neville said as calmly as possible, trying to soothe his friend. Harry took a few deep breaths, trying to calm his anger and anxiety. No, I know you were trying to help, Nev, he finally said. And hey, about what happened? Whatever happened? Neville said awkwardly, looking away. I haven't really told you about my parents, and just know you'll get no judgment from me. Whatever, okay? Thanks, Nev. I've kind of put the pieces together from what I've heard. Harry smiled at him. So, what's this about? What's this about getting a pet dog? The elf smiled, changing the subject. Harry groaned. No, there's no way I'm telling Snape Padfoot can get himself killed. I'm out of it. Still lost, mate, Neville chuckled. Hey, how good are you at convincing Malfoy to do things? Harry smiled deviously at his friend. Well, that was interesting. We will get a pet Padfoot for possibly Draco? At the very least, Snape will have a pet dog if nothing else works. There's something at least. Can't wait to see what happens next. It will be quite fun, I assume. Anyways, thank you for listening in, my lovelies, and I hope you have a wonderful day, night, or whatever time you're in. Make sure you eat, drink, make sure you sleep enough. I see you there with your insomnia. At least try and rest. Until then, see you next time.